you very much, Alan. As Alan mentioned before, my name is Nevo Igasira, and it's my pleasure to be in the company of people like John, Viola, and Kenneth, who is going to be joining us. We are unlucky because of connection issues. We won't have Martin join us, but we're still in very good company, and we had the pleasure of having Tommy Davis mention a couple of things that we're going to be tackling on this panel. The topic is rethinking the approach to startup financing. We're living in new times, a couple of things are changing, so we have to change as well, definitely. If everything we were doing before, we continue doing that, then nothing will change. The interesting bit about that, I'll have Kenneth join us online, but having John and Viola, the interesting thing that Tommy Davis actually mentioned was the fact that the bit about venture capital, how long it has taken to actually have it change, it's been ages. And obviously the pandemic happened this year. We're trying to switch up a couple of things here and there. But now the question is, if it took that longer time, how long is it going to take us to switch up everything that we need to do in this short period of time? I'm going to ask and request John to answer first to set precedent for what we're going to cover. And the first bit is going to be what is startup financing, so that from there we can pick up with the conversation we're trying to have and understand how we can actually change the approach.
Thank you very much, Neville. So, first of all, my name is John Davarasa, and I work with ITC. ITC is the International Trade Center, and we are a joint agency of the UN and the World Trade Organization, and most of the work Is it working?
John, I want to request you to start that again.
So ITC is the International Trade Center, and we are basically the joint agency of the UN and the World Trade Organization. The work that we do is to support small and medium enterprises across emerging markets, and it's mainly centered around providing trade-related technical assistance. So we are currently operating in more than 10 African countries, including Uganda. And so we work at 3 levels, first of all. A is at the ecosystem level, where we work directly with governments of all these countries. So we help them design national strategies for their IT or business process outsourcing sectors. And then we work with at the institutional level, because our work is mainly to promote or grow the IT sector in these countries under the Netherlands Trust Fund project. We work directly with IT, we work with tech hubs, incubators and accelerators, and this is why Startup Uganda for us is a strong partner to support for the Kampala Innovation Week. And the reason why we really work with the tech hubs is because the project is time-based. So it has a start date and an end date, but we want to make sure that we have someone on ground to be able to carry on the work that we're doing for the SMEs and the startups when the project comes to an end. Then the third level is we work directly with the SMEs and the startups, mainly in areas of capacity building, because most of the startups or the small and medium enterprise businesses are on very shallow grounds when it comes to skills. So we train them from as early as business models, understanding value proposition, and then designing for them export marketing plans. Yeah, so that's really the work that we're doing. And then the business linkages is we link them directly to investors, because most of them need capital to become stronger actors in the ecosystem. So we have been participating in a lot of B2B events where we organize for them meetings with investors and potential partners and buyers. We have seen a lot of success come out of that. So to answer your question on startup financing, it's basically every startup needs fundraising or they need financing to scale. They don't need financing to start business, right? The financing is just for them to accelerate their growth, to be able to enter the market or to scale beyond their countries.
Wait, but John, there are stages though, right?
Yeah.
They could be the first phase, and for some startups, they have prototypes that they actually have to make even before getting to the decision making of what they're trying to do. I know, and I'm going to thank Moti for actually hosting us, but they have 3D printing that helps some of these companies actually get to that point before even knowing what is going to happen. They could have an idea, but they need finance to actually get to that point of seeing what the product actually looks like, right? So can that be a first stage and a couple of stages that follow that would require them to get financing? While I'm letting you answer that, thank you, Kenneth, for joining us. I hope the time frame is not so bad that we had to wake you up, but thank you for joining us as well. Yes, John?
My pleasure.
Thanks, Neville.
Hello, good morning.
Kenneth, we can hear you and we're excited to have you. Thank you.
Perfect.
So Neville, like Tommy Davis mentioned earlier, there is the initial bootstrapping, so the money that you actually put in your business when you're just starting out. It can be from your family and friends, or from your personal savings, or even from well-wishers. So that is at the early stage. We have early stage or the seed financing, when you're just beginning out and trying to figure out who your buyers are going to be. And then you go from there to a pre-series A, and then to a series A, to a series B, to a series C, etc. So it's different levels of financing, and they come with different investment ticket sizes. I mean, the earlier you are, the smaller the investment ticket, and then it keeps going up. And that's why there are also different types of investors. So you have the angel investors. So like Kenneth Legacy, of course, is doing very good work with Kane, the Kampala Angels, and these are people who invest typically at the early stage. So they normally sign the smaller checks, and then you have the VCs coming in much later. When you have gained traction, you have you're generating revenues. The VCs typically do not invest early. They come in at like Series A, when you have that grip of the market, and you're generating revenues for the business.
Okay, thank you very much, John. At least you've set a platform that we can start with. I already see Viola is very excited. We're in the company of money bags, people who give money at different stages. We have Kenneth as well, who with the angel investments and whatnot. So all the ideas that you have, Viola, and the amazing business that you actually already have, we might actually leave here with a check. I don't know if that gives me a position of actually being an agent as well. Viola, you're a very, very good person to actually have in this conversation, because something has to change, obviously. It's not the same as before. I know you've made a couple of pitches, you've been successful in some, but now that we are rethinking this whole aspect, what do you think we have to do?
Thank you. Viola Mumpira is my name. I'm the founder and CEO of WenaHardware.com. And as Wena, we have been bootstrapping since we started till now. And first of all, what as an entrepreneur has to do, myself as an entrepreneur, what is it that I have to do in this period where things have definitely changed? As an e-commerce platform that that has benefited from the pandemic, it's so sad, but yes, that has benefited from the pandemic.
You don't have to be ashamed of that, Viola. It's okay. We can see how well you're doing.
Okay, thank you. We've definitely grown faster than we thought we'd grow. So that has brought certain changes that need financing. This actually gives me a platform to maybe explain, if you're growing, if you're in business, why is it that you need money? So there are certain things that we as entrepreneurs did not plan for. For example, if you have so many orders coming in and your team is still lean, it means that you cannot efficiently deliver or work on the orders that you actually have. Ugandans generally, or most of them, want to pay when they've received their items. So if most people are opting for a cash on delivery as a payment option, how are you able to work on these orders when you've actually not had money from them? So you don't actually have money to process or work on the different orders that you're receiving. So you get to a position where you need money to be able to keep operating and grow the volumes of how much you can actually handle at a given period of time. So in this pandemic, where so many companies, especially in the e-commerce business line, are making a lot of money, but the struggles they have to go through to make that money is now what makes us think of how different we have to run businesses, what we have to prioritize, and what we actually have to ask for from investors. So that makes me say that first, as entrepreneurs, we have to prioritize what is that most urgent thing you have to fix in your business. Is it the team? Is it you processing orders, so you need operating capital? Or is it that you need a certain system that you have to purchase and implement in the already existing MVP? So when it comes to discussing what your needs are to investors, you have to front the priorities, those things that you must first fix now. But when it comes to investors also, they need to understand that yes, we are making money, we have this traction, but there are so many struggles we are going through at this time because we did not grow to that step. Things just happened, and we are now in a position, yes, we have traction, but we have a lot of things that we need to fix internally for us to be able to operate efficiently.
So good things just happened, putting you in a very good position. I want to bring you back on that same point because there are a couple of things that you would have to explain further. For instance, being in this period of time of the pandemic, the biggest issue has been touching cash, holding cash. And for your business in particular, the volumes of money that some of your team members would have to access would be immense. The risk would be high. That's why the digital platforms and the payment platforms, fintech has been mentioning this a couple of times, that mobile money and whatnot are what people have been using, right? But before that, now that we have Kenneth, I want to request Kenneth to first and foremost highlight on two things so that it can set a precedent of sort for us to understand while we are rethinking startup financing, what are the types of funding that are available, first and foremost, and the types of investors that are available. Being from Africa, the biggest question has always been, and the biggest worry, especially for entrepreneurs like you, Viola, has been using your family or your friends, and a couple of questions that come, if I give you this 10K, when do I expect it to turn into 20K? And yet for you, you're honestly thinking long term, and you don't even know if it might actually get to that point. So Kenneth, I want to request you to highlight on the types of investors and funding, so that while we're rethinking, we can know who we are targeting and how these people can actually help us. So that even as entrepreneurs, we can know who we are targeting and what sort of funding we should actually be trying to get to.
Thank you. Good morning. So you've asked me to just discuss and highlight about the different types of funding out there. And I think Tommy Davis highlighted on some of them. When you're just starting out, the best form of financing, of course, is bootstrapping, where you're using saved funds, or you're avoiding certain things, or you're bargaining and bartering with service providers, and you're speaking to your friends, families, and I usually say fools, because at that point you're very early in the business. However, as you go along, then you're looking for funding, which is in the form of, say, grants through innovation awards, through hackathons. And at this stage as well, if you've built an MVP, and I like what Tommy Davis said about building an MVP when you're raising funding. At that stage, you can put it out there and get pre-sales in the form of crowdfunding. We have some platforms in Uganda that are supporting that. For example, Cabo Dolphin Fund, and I in my day job, I'm the CEO, CIO at Otters Africa Capital. And we are also building a platform that will come to the market soon that can help you this crowdfunding. But that is another form of funding, crowdfunding. Then other forms of funding out there are in the form of partnerships. So partnerships, you work with partners who will help you get to revenue much, much earlier. And where you're seated right now at Motive is a good example. For example, there is a community there of creatives in the, say, textile space. And when Motive got some orders to be able to manufacture face masks, they turned to that that community of creatives to outsource that work. So partnerships like that, and in the past we've seen partnerships, for example, with say MTN, where they are going to offtake your fintech product and get you to plug into mobile money early, say through the MTN Accelerator program. We've seen similar partnership programs with the likes of maybe UNCDF, even still within other members of the Startup Uganda community. So partnerships are another way of funding. But as you then move along and you become more mature, you start looking at third-party capital. So that is capital that is coming from outside your immediate friends and family, and is more social in forms of grants and partnerships. And so that's when we start looking at your venture capital in its earliest form, angel investors. Now, at the Kampala Angel Investment Network, where I'm one of the trustees, we are looking to match local angels to early stage companies in Uganda. And we were glad we had, I'm proud to say Viola was one of the entrepreneurs that pitched at Kampala Angel Investment Network. She can share about the experience. But we have started, we are yet to close some deals. However, we are enabling this environment where now local entrepreneurs in Uganda can find local angel investors who are interested. And we have a monthly pitch session for this to happen. So moving on then from angel investors is where you start having Series A, Series B, Series C funding for entrepreneurs. We are yet to see lots of entrepreneurs that are migrating into that phase. And maybe while we're waiting for entrepreneurs who can get that institutional funding, Series A, Series B, Series C, we need to think of alternatives in Uganda. So we have options like revenue-based financing, where if you've started to make some revenue, that's why it's important to get to MVP and make revenue quickly. You can
Kenneth,
get
if you can hear me, I want to stop you for just a second for one reason.
Those are some of the alternatives or types of funding that are out there.
Oh, thank you very much. You mentioned a couple of things. One, I don't know if Viola is expecting her pitch to have gone through, and she's happy about that, having you on board as well. But a couple of things have jumped at me, and I've always had a question. Everyone keeps talking about crowdfunding or sourcing at that. Initially, the biggest issue about it was mainly about social, basically initiatives, whereby people are collecting money for a social cause, say a charity or something like that, right? But then as well, it has come as an opportunity for people who don't have the large amounts of money that, say, the venture capitalists might have, or angel investors, whereby even if someone has, let's say, $10,000 US, they can chip in and actually be part of a startup just like Viola's that they think is actually going to become something big, and they have that opportunity to do that as well, right? But now, within the types of funding, you also mentioned the types of investors, obviously. But the biggest aspect I want you to highlight is, while we're rethinking startup financing, I want you to come from the angle of the investors, because I think the biggest issue for investors now is, do we pitch differently? Because people are cagey about giving out their money, who they give it out to, how they give it out to, and there's been, and I think this will be highlighted by you, John, first, the aspect of particular sectors are now being looked at. It doesn't matter how good your idea is or your startup is, the minute you go to pitch, they're like, oh no, we're thinking of agriculture, we're thinking of logistics and whatnot. So I want you to give an opportunity to an entrepreneur to understand, do I have a chance? Who do I look up to? How do I pitch? Should I change? Because we're trying to rethink. We're trying to change or maintain or actually get a better way to work out startup financing. I'm going to ask John first, then we'll get back to you, Kenneth.
Sure.
In terms of what sectors are really sellable right now to investors, I would say, first of all, the fintechs that you mentioned, they have been doing a lot of, the UN recently released, I think, a report that the fintechs are actually helping to reduce on the spread of COVID-19 because they are reducing on the cash in hand that people have to handle. So you find that even before COVID-19, fintech, always had a lot of interest from investors. But now I think it has even accelerated. Most of the banks, there's a bank, I forget what it's called, but it's in Nigeria. They recently, I think they laid off like 70% of them, remained with 30%, and they're going fully virtual. So that is a lot of potential for fintech. And then during the lockdown, we also had e-commerce. We have companies that were delivering groceries straight to people's doorsteps. So they were avoiding that whole market congestion and be closed. People could not really move around. So e-commerce, fintech, and you can't mention e-commerce without logistics. The likes of SafeBorder were doing very well during the pandemic. I think they pivoted a little bit from moving people to delivering packages, and then they also obviously put in the fintech or the payment model, which really helped them a lot. And of course, you don't talk about health tech startups, right? There's a lot of solutions that people are developing right now to help control, from manufacturing of PPEs to designing different platforms that help in detecting. There's an application that I recently used when I was traveling. So it's called, it's an app that helps you detect if somebody with a similar app was tested positive for the virus. So there's a lot of appetite around.
Is that, honestly, wouldn't that bring about issues whereby just because I've tested positive before, no one around me starts talking to me?
No, I mean, it gives you an idea of whether or not you were exposed. And so then you're able to test early and avoid, spreading it further to more people. So it's beyond rather the stick, being a bit more cautious about where have I been, who have I been in contact with.
You mentioned the word pivoting, and that's going to push me to you, Viola, first, because I mean, if everyone is focusing on, and I know UNCDF also partnered with a couple of e-commerce platforms during the pandemic to work out logistics and whatnot, so that was important. So there is MED, there is e-commerce, there is all these other things, the fintechs. Now, if I'm in tourism, what do I do? It's not like I'm going to stop. Some of them had invested about 3 years, 2 years, or a lot of time to get all their businesses to a certain point. Do you pivot? How do you switch from tourism to med? And I'm going to ask Viola this because as an entrepreneur, you've invested a lot of time, and then you realize we're in a time whereby a certain area or sector is not being focused on a lot, yet you feel like you've gotten your business to that point whereby if only you could get a certain investment, it could push you to another level.
Thank you so much. That's very true. Personally, Wena is into construction. Yes, we have a bit of fintech. We are an e-commerce store, but I don't think anybody is focusing on construction, and that's sad. But the truth is, really, Viola? I think if I'm not mistaken, hardwares were the first to be opened even during lockdown. Yes, but not in the innovation ecosystem. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't expect any angel investors to, focus on construction. And it already has its reasons why it's not very attractive. The volumes are so big. The last mile delivery bit in construction is also not very easy compared to the smaller packages. So it's not as attractive already. Wouldn't the big volumes be something that's attractive? Because if I'm not mistaken, in the bit about investment, numbers really matter a lot. And once
someone hears volumes, that should excite an investor, no?
I thought so too, but it's turned out different. So what I think we as entrepreneurs, first of all, personally, as an entrepreneur, it's very difficult to just jump from one sector to another. Maybe if others are okay with doing it, but the most entrepreneurs I know are not. You find that you're very attached to maybe a sector, or you maybe are more interested in a sector or just experienced in a certain sector. So just because a certain sector, say farming or health, is now more attractive to investors or grants or anything else, I don't think that should be reason for you to change from what you're already doing to another, sector. But I think there is always a way you can do what you're doing in an attractive way. Most people are not very aware that generally, even when people were not going to markets to buy foodstuffs and groceries, they were still sleeping or constructing houses or just, upgrading their houses. So home improvement is actually one sector that I thought people would find very attractive. People spent more time in their homes. People now started paying more attention to their homes and needed to, change bits and pieces of what their homes looked like. So that's why Wena was one of the places or the stores that would sell.
Is this even during the pandemic period?
Just for Uganda, after we had, been allowed to operate as a hardware store. So
Okay.
for us,
Because I'm wondering how, if you're still waiting for the posho and the bins and a face mask, you want to change your kitchen and whatnot, where your
No.
priorities would be lying.
Exactly. It's just about, different people have different needs. So there are those that definitely needed food, but then there are those who felt their spaces needed to look different because they had been in those spaces longer. Others needed to now create home offices. So there were different needs that came with the pandemic, and construction or home improvement was one of them. However, generally, I think the ecosystem is still focusing on farming or agriculture, health, and fintech. So when it comes to Wena, I look at the fintech bit. I'm not changing my whole business, but I'm now looking at what are those things that are being, looked at entirely, and fintech being one of them, and yet it is something that we're already doing. We have a wallet that helps people save to build. So how then do I plug into what is already selling? So as an entrepreneur, I have to now look at what is already selling for me to be relevant, for me to be attractive.
So before, let me say you've already pitched. I'll give an example of John, obviously, because it looks like what an investor would look like, right?
Yes.
And you pitched before, and your actual target was the volumes and what was going on there with the business. Do you come around now and rethink that aspect and come and pitch the bit about the fintech and the new aspects of the business, like the remodeling, to actually show that the business is still viable as is and you still justify to get the investment?
Yes, so instead of fronting the store and, as an e-commerce store, I then have to focus on the features of the store that are actually relevant, such as the wallet, such as the, Wena Global, which helps people import goods without traveling across the border. So some of the things that are very relevant of what I'm already doing is what now I would think of selling to both Kane and ITC.
Thank you, Viola. Yes, John?
Can I just comment very briefly on what she mentioned? I kind of disagree with her. I don't think that startups should pivot primarily for investment. But if you have a working product, you have a working solution, you have, you understand your market, you have the buyers, you should not have to change your model just to suit an investor, because then the motivation changes. The motivation is the money. And what happens if the money doesn't come, you're going to stop. Rather focus on the business, the customers that you have, grow that traction, and then the money will come following you. The right investors will come following you. So it's not what does the investor want, it's what does my customer want, and how do I grow my customer base, how do I generate more revenues from my niche, which is Wena hardware, which is not fintech. Like, I don't have to go to fintech because a lot of investment is going that side. I think that's a mistake that unfortunately a number of companies do, and it kind of cripples the grip that they already have on the market, and people in the similar sector or industry, that competition is going to overtake you because they're a little bit more focused on the right thing, which is the customer, and you are kind of, okay, where's Kane putting the money? Kane is putting the money in fintech. I'm going to pivot to fintech. Where's ITC putting the money? It's e-commerce. I'm pivoting to e-commerce.
John,
Yeah.
John, your train of thought is actually very good, but I won't give a chance to Viola to speak because of one reason. If I understood her right, the angle of pivoting is not the same, because before the idea was I jump from, say, hardware and I move all the way to tourism because that's where they're focusing. But when she mentioned fintech, it was fintech within the e-commerce platform itself.
Yes,
Viola, am I right?
maybe I can clarify. Wenna as a business, Wenna is a hardware store, but within our hardware store, we have features. We have 4 features, one being professionals, so you find engineers, architects on the same platform. Then we have Wenna Global that helps you import construction materials. We know there are so many construction materials that are imported. Then we have the Wenna store, which is the store where you buy locally sourced items. And then we have the Wenna wallet, which is a wallet that helps people save towards the materials they want to build. So if people are now focusing on fintech, the cashless and the tech that is involved with movement of money, and I already have that feature, instead of now talking about the locally sourced items, as the major part of my pitch, I'm now going to front the 2 selling items, which is one, Wenna Global. You now don't have to take a plane because of the COVID risk. You just now order for your building materials from India or Dubai, and we get them to the country. We now have the wallet. You don't have to be worried about movement of the hand, paper, cash in your hands. You now have the wallet that is going to help you save towards the items you want to build. So I'm not saying that we have to move from what we're already doing and look for where the money is, but within the product that you're already building, how do you be relevant to what is also already selling?
Okay, thank you. At least I was not mistaken there. Kenneth, there is the issue of pivoting, especially for the entrepreneurs, and you can imagine they pitched to you before, and now your focus is on different sectors and whatnot. How do you rethink that bit when an entrepreneur comes up again and they've pivoted not so far, not 360, not even 180, but maybe 45 or even 30 to fit into the targeted sector that you might be focusing in as an investor? That's just one bit. Then the other aspect is the pension fund. I know we've had that as an issue in the country. I always thought personally that it would benefit the whole investment platform if it were privatized. We know that's not happening anytime soon, but if that were to happen, would that benefit the entrepreneurs more and give them more access to funds, say?
Yes, I think maybe I'll just say, even in these times, even as we're rethinking startup financing, there are certain fundamentals that remain important always when you're looking for capital. And those are around, are you solving a problem for a market that is large enough? Are you the best team to solve that problem? And can you demonstrate that by showing traction and have gotten an MVP that you can show investors? These will make you eminently more attractive to financing. Now, even when you've pivoted as a business and you come back to repitch, we would expect that those fundamentals are still true. The market you're addressing is still large enough to unlock financing from. You're the best team to deliver on this opportunity, and you've proven it by showing us an MVP that you've scaled perhaps to fast users and is growing really rapidly. Those fundamentals will make you more attractive and make any investor want to give you money. So that will not change. Maybe just to speak on the theme we are considering now around rethinking startup financing. And I see one of the questions in the Facebook Live is around where, say, are these crowdfunding platforms. I just know that there's things that are coming that will enable Ugandans with little money or Africans with as little as $1,000, $10,000 in funding, $500 in funding to be able to give a startup money. But they'll only give that funding if those fundamentals are true. Yeah. Sorry, just repeat, what was the second question?
Kenneth, the second question was about the pension fund and how it would benefit the investment platform. But before that, I know you highlighted a bit about what Tommy Davis as well highlighted, the aspect of, say, the population or the market. Does that mean as entrepreneurs here in Uganda, we should start at the least point, start thinking of the whole region in terms of East African region, because the reason as to why markets such as the investment platform in Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt is bigger is because they have a bigger population. We can't change that in real quick. But now we're trying to rethink startup financing. So does that mean on the entrepreneurial side, the aspect to think about is to think at a bigger scale and not just Uganda, because once they keep looking at just Uganda, they will have a lesser chance of getting investment?
Yes. I'd say so. And what at the, for example, the 97 Fund, what we do is we support entrepreneurs through a venture building model. And when we're talking to them about market and how it relates to product, some of the things we tell entrepreneurs is that from the get-go, you should be building it to serve Africa if you can. If it's a technology solution, it means that you have to put it in the Play Store so that anyone on the continent or anyone in the world can download the solution. Currently, I'm working with a business that is in the poultry value chain, and they're building out an MVP. But the largest number of the users, when it was put in the Play Store that are testing out the app, were from Nigeria, from India, from South Africa, and then followed by Uganda. So yes, from the get-go, look for either partnerships or build within your product the ability to sell across the world or across the continent at least. And that means you're addressing a market that is large enough. On the issue of NSSF, we are seeing NSSF through initiatives like the High Innovator come to play in as far as funding for startups is concerned. I'm really hoping that besides the High Innovator initiative, we can see NSSF start to place money into funds such as the 97 Fund or other funds out there, and gives them a chance to contribute more to funding early stage companies. So there's certainly been a shift and interest and participation from NSSF, and we are all being championed in this cause and being pushed down this road and working together under the Young Africa Works umbrella with fund supported by the MasterCard Foundation. But we are hoping we should see more of people like investors like the NSSF coming to play.
Okay, thank you, Kenneth. Viola, I want you to respond to one point that Kenneth highlighted. Imagine you pitch your unique idea to an investor, and he has the audacity to tell you that you're not the right person to run that idea.
That happens a lot. So, as an entrepreneur who has been on these streets, let me say that, for years now, about almost making 2 years, it's very discouraging. Actually, sometimes the more pitches you participate in, the more you're disheartened and you rethink your business. But the truth is, most entrepreneurs are out there to learn. They have started something. They know, maybe some of them know what they actually need to improve on, but they are limited by resources available. So yes, you as a founder, you could be an expert, or you could be so interested in that business line, but you need experts, people who know more than you do, to actually bring them on the team. for you to have a team that is good enough to drive that innovation to the next level, you need money. So that's why then we come to them. We might not have the best team at that very time, but we have intentions of growing a team that is good enough to run WENA as a Pan-African store. So sometimes I feel like, okay, it's just a feeling, that investors should look beyond what it is that we are presenting at that very time and prompt us to maybe bring out the best or the future plans that we have for what we are pitching. You had previously asked me about the cash, carrying cash, and it being the reasons why COVID is spreading faster, and yet it's a payment option that most people are opting for. So I feel like that is a problem, not just experienced by WENA, but even other people that I have interacted with in the ecosystem. Most Ugandans still want to pay after goods have been actually delivered to them. Surprisingly, most of them still send mobile money. It's not that they are paying you physical money, but they have that, they are only comfortable to pay once the goods have been, delivered to their premises, or they have actually witnessed the goods. So cash on delivery is no longer the physical cash on delivery payment as an option, but what I have come to understand is it means that I will pay once I have received my goods.
Okay, that's actually very good. So that still emphasizes the aspect of the African eyes are in the hands. So they will still pay using mobile money, but they have to see the product first. Okay, that's actually very good. Then the aspect about having a better team running your idea should not be a very big issue, because you actually stand to benefit and the idea can come to fruition. So if the investors can actually look at it in that angle, it would stand to benefit. That's good. How about the aspect, and I'm going to deviate from you to John, because John does a lot of mentoring, he does a lot of market engagement. There has been word that, and this affects entrepreneurs a lot, and Kenneth, I hope you're listening as well, because everyone says, I get these very good ideas, I go out and pitch them for some sort of investment, they tell me, oh, that will never work. Then 2 months, 1 year down the road, someone is doing the same thing. So people are worried, even when they're pitching their ideas, they feel like, should I even bother? Because they're just going to steal my idea anyway. They have the money, they don't need me, so why are they going to use me in the first place? I mean, you already have them talking to other entrepreneurs who actually tell them, they told me I can't even run this idea. So basically, they're going to run away with it. Why should I keep pitching? I've pitched 5 ideas, 4 of them on the market. I don't know if it was because of me. Fact is, you cannot be the only person thinking, but sometimes you feel like, I've gotten to this first. If I can't make it, then 2 months down the road, it's working, yet they told you that won't work, we won't give you money. So John, in terms of the mentoring side, and you being engaged with the market, how do you deal with that as regards to the entrepreneurs as well?
Right, so this is what I always tell startups, and it happens a lot actually. When we are like in pitching trainings or mentoring programs, and you tell a startup, okay, so 3 minutes, pitch your idea. One will come and tell you, John, I can't pitch because somebody in the back is going to steal my idea, and it's a silly narrative, because investors typically do not invest in your idea, right? They invest in the person and the execution. So the guy in the back might have the money, but they're not able to execute. They don't have, the vision, the why, as to why you wanted to start that idea. So they always have that that narrative of somebody's going to steal my idea.
John, are you saying it never happens?
I mean, it happens.
Because Viola will say otherwise.
It happens, but like there will always be other people doing the same thing that you're doing, and competition is very healthy. So if they're doing it, do it better, do it faster, do it cheaper, and do it more efficiently. So there's so many reasons why the investor is going to say no. The first thing is, they're very polite investors. They will tell you, you are too early stage for us, and usually that cuts off startups. And startups, unfortunately, they just cut off communication with the investor. If I pitched my idea, if I'm Wena Hardware and I pitched my idea to Kenneth Legacy, and he tells me, listen, Wena, you are too early stage for me, I sign the bigger checks. I will go to his portfolio and look at the companies that he has invested in, and I'll tell him, Kenneth, listen, you have invested in ABC, but I think I'm doing better in these aspects than this company that you've already invested in. And what you do is you don't go quiet. If the guy says no, keep him updated. Like, at the end of the quarter, tell him, listen, you said we're too early stage, but now we have grown our traction, we have grown our numbers. Even if he does not respond to the email, just keep bugging him. Investors talk a lot, and he might find the perfect pitch for you. Sometimes the investor that you're talking to might not be the right investor for you. Venture capital, for example, is not the right model for every entrepreneur, especially the ones that are early stage. So, you have to understand what's best for you. Is it the crowdfunding? Are you going to go onto an online platform and give incentives?
I'm already worried that someone is going to steal the idea in this room, and you're telling me to put it online for many people to see it.
You have to put yourself out there.
Because John, you're saying the investors invest in you, the person, not the idea per se, right?
I think if I talk to you, Neville, for 5 minutes and I like you, even if your idea is not the best idea, and I have the networks to make it better and bring it to market, I think I'll still invest in you. If I don't like you, if I see you posting funny things on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, I cannot trust you. I mean, there's so many ideas out there. But
so even if I have a good idea and I'm not likable, and I post memes and videos that are not nice, I will most likely not get investment.
It can be the difference between me giving you money and not. Because if you pitched me and Viola pitches me, and you both have good ideas, and I go to Twitter and I see that you're talking bad things about people, I probably will go with this guy who is very quiet and is not posting very controversial things. Because what happens, an investor-investee relationship is supposed to be a relationship. It's not just money. And there is a joke that investor-investee relationships last on average longer than the actual marriage relationships. So it's really beyond just the money. It's, can I work with you for 10 years? Can I work with you for, up to the exit point?
So basically, while we're rethinking startup financing, on the mentoring side, are you changing some of the templates and the content that you've been using to mentor these entrepreneurs to fit into dynamics like that? Some of the entrepreneurs before and the older ones are not affected by social media and whatnot. They never post. They don't even have those platforms. They just come with their ideas and pitch. Do you change some of these? And when you're talking to entrepreneurs, they know you need to be likable. You need to be like this. It's not just your idea. It's you as well, the way you dress. Because the likes of Kenneth are looking at that, and that matters to them, and the relationship they would want to have with you.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Neville, if somebody comes and pitches you in shorts, like small shorts and a T-shirt, and another guy comes dressed properly, you're likely to go for the guy that's a little bit not in shorts, right? It's just that first impression of we are human beings. Like, I need you to be serious.
So right? Perception is literally more important than even reality.
Which is actually very important. Sometimes it's that thing at first sight. Guys, I like this guy. And before you know it, he's introducing you to other networks and training you on how to, to pitch your business better, introducing maybe modeling for your tweaking for your business models, introducing maybe subscription or advertising, and saying, okay, listen, I've been in the market for long enough, and I think you're a great entrepreneur. However, your business model is not. It will probably not bring in money, because most VCs they're really all about their return on investment. So those are small things that investors can actually change, but you cannot really change a person's personality. It's very, very difficult.
I want to take this to Kenneth so that he can highlight on that, but this makes a lot of sense. Now I understand why Viola is always pitch perfect, smart and whatnot. She never even retweets some of our stuff. I think she's watching out for some of those things. So Kenneth, as regards to what we're doing now in terms of rethinking startup financing, what would you highlight for, especially on the entrepreneur side, what they should watch out for when they're pitching, when they're working out their ideas, and when they're thinking about actually getting finance? Because for me, some of the things that I actually wanted us to also highlight are: why are you looking for financing? When should you? How should you? To whom? Because having a relationship with an investor who's not good can be very, very futile. Because, I mean, if someone is investing in your business, we have to look at the other side of the coin, right? Your decision making is capped. You have to give out some sort of equity in your business. So, Kenneth.
Yes, thank you. You know, I talked about the basics, the fundamentals before. The quicker you get to those fundamentals and you demonstrate them, the more attractive, the more control, if you like, you'll have when you go to seek funding from investors, and the more likely you are to attract alternative funding methods, since we are rethinking startup funding. So what I tell entrepreneurs, I've said before, the market is large enough. You're the person to execute on this market opportunity. You can demonstrate you're doing that. It means get to your MVP or prototype very quickly, get to showing that you're making money very quickly, because it then opens up a world of alternative opportunities. If you're making money very quickly, you know what product you're putting out in the market. It means when you crowdfund, for example, if we're going to go down that route, it means you can have something actually to offer people who give you financing in exchange for taking their money. You could tell people, okay, whoever gives funding to, okay, we'll use Viola because she's there. Whoever gives funding to Wena Hardware, you get a 5% discount on your next hardware purchase if you buy it through Wena Hardware. But you can't do that if you've not built Wena Hardware, you've done transactions, you've shown people it can work, you have a wallet where you collect this money and so on and so forth. So build and show traction as quickly as possible. And this is where some of the work we do at the 97 Fund or Autos Africa Capital comes in, because we adopt that venture builder model that allows you to get quickly to the point where you're showing traction. And the other perhaps is, I know earlier someone mentioned around, we're worried about people stealing our idea, corporations we pitch to. One, do your own research on the investors you're pitching to, know where their interest is. Two, I'm sorry, entrepreneurs, you're worried about someone stealing your idea. Well, you really have to put yourself out there, and otherwise you're not going to be able to attract that funding or know whether your idea is good or not if you don't get feedback on it from other people, even investors. You can pitch and share your idea without revealing what's corporate, what's commercial for making it a success. And the other is, like I said, why are you the best person to deliver on this idea? I may take your idea, but if I don't have you to deliver on it with the passion, with the energy, with the insights, with the understanding of the market, it won't be successful. So investors are interested in giving you the money to deliver on your idea, but you can bring them on site by demonstrating to them the market's large enough and the person to execute. Look, here is traction in what I've done so far towards this idea, and you're not going to find anyone better to execute on this than me.
Thank you, Kenneth. Viola, this is your chance.
I'll just speak on what you said. When, how, and to whom should we as startups or as entrepreneurs look for financing? First, I'll just give a brief on what Wena has been doing for the past 18 months. Wena started out, first of all, we are not registered. We later got registered, so that's why I'm counting only 18 months. And I think most of the people that I worked with at that time did not really have the experience in the construction industry. Myself, I did not have the experience. I was just passionate about the industry. I'm a professional marketer, so I knew nothing about hardware materials and what construction is about. I took the initiative to learn as much as I could, so did my team. Currently, we have, on top of what I had on the team, I now have more engineers on the team to guide on the things that need the technical advice. So before I had the ability to get the engineers on the team, there are things I needed to fix. One, how would I assure them that we actually have their salaries for the next month? So I was bootstrapping, I was making sure that I close any sale and every sale, offline or online. I would, so that's what I did for the first few months, for the first many months. And then I got to a point of signing partnerships. So partnerships are the easiest way to actually get more visibility and get things done. However, if you're too small and you take on a bigger entity, most probably you will fail and embarrass yourself, or you will not even be able to execute the deals that come through. So I got a partnership with Housing Finance Bank, and Housing Finance Bank is a mortgage bank. So it meant that I was in the direct market, or directly in touch with the customers who needed my services.
Were you trying to tap into the database of people who are actually building? Okay.
Yes, that's why. But I also had something I was offering to the bank, so that's why the partnership would work out. However, had I gone to the bank a year before this year, before we actually got the partnership, I don't think I had the ability to even do half of what we are currently doing. So that brings me to the when. As an entrepreneur, at what point do you actually commit yourself to certain relationships or to certain engagements? You must know internally what your abilities are and what you can actually handle. Otherwise, if currently we're running Black Friday and the November sale, I would call it, I don't think I actually did not have this ability to do this last year because I knew my abilities, I knew what I could handle and what I could not handle. Fortunately, early this year, we became African, when I was the win of African Women in Tech, and that gave me another platform to get a bit of money that pushed further WENA Kenya. And for us, starting out in Kenya also meant certain things. Exposure, got insights on what the uptake of digital usage in Kenya is versus Uganda, a discussion for another day. But it challenged me differently to be operating a business in Kenya and Uganda and then realizing what our financial needs are. I got to utilize the opportunities that NTF4 is giving us on market expansion and linkages. So for me, it's been bootstrapping, but also using resources available to me to move from one step to another, to understand what it is that I actually need at what point. So it's very important as entrepreneurs to understand that, yes, at this level, this is actually not it. I love VCs, I love the discussion and everything, but I am still yet to understand, is this actually what I want as an entrepreneur? But if I got a grant from Kane, and other people that are already interested.
We understand why you've chosen grants out of all the other aspects of funding.
Yes, because I don't want to bring in someone in my business and then I have to explain myself of, I thought this is what we wanted, or I thought this software would work. I don't think I'm yet at that level of needing so much money for things that I am not also sure about. So at this level, as WENA, we know our needs and we know how much of a ticket or a check we need from so many other people out there.
Thank you very much, Rella. You've highlighted a very big point that I want John to actually expound further, especially now that we're rethinking startup financing, the aspect of partnerships. You do a lot of mentoring, market engagement. What are we now in this field and rethinking this? What should we focus on, especially on partnerships? I feel it's a very, very big deal. Sometimes you might not get the actual financing, but a partnership can shape you into a position where you're actually ready for the financing.
Yeah, Neville, I think, we have a lot of, as ITC, we have a lot of focus on building partnerships for startups. I'll give you an example. Recently, we were in Kigali, I think Feb. We were attending the Africa Tech Summit, and one of our companies met with a potential partner from London, and they only recently signed the MOU. So it's not direct cash, but it's a partnership. I think partnerships now more than ever, even more important than financing, because investors are really trying to go into cash reserve mode. There is not a lot of capital in the market. And just to continue on partnerships, I think we also have a very huge gap with startups and corporate ecosystems. The startups are, they move very fast, they're very agile, they take risks, but they don't have money. Then you have the corporates who are a little bit slow with the decision making and a little bit reserved and risk averse. So if we can get corporates and startups to sit on the same table, you have the startups with the innovations, the speed in taking decisions, the speed in understanding the market needs and problems and designing solutions for those. And then you have the corporates with the big checks. I think we could do so much around that in the form of partnerships, of course.
Thank you very much, and I hope Startup Uganda takes that initiative to actually help push that further. We're going to go to now questions from the audience. The first one, I'm just going to direct it straight to you, Kenneth. Can you give us some real examples of crowdfunding in Kampala?
Crowdfunding is fledgling. The ones we have out in the market at the moment that I know of, I must admit I haven't experienced or used them myself. There is Akabo and there's Dolphin Fund. Both of these, so when you think about crowdfunding, the model for crowdfunding is either you have rewards-based crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, lending crowdfunding. So both Akabo and Dolphin Fund at the moment are rewards-based models. Those are the ones we know in Kampala. However, if you're in Kampala, there is no reason why you can't apply to work through African crowdfunding platforms. And if you go to the Africa Crowdfunding Association, you will find listed there a lot of other crowdfunding platforms in Africa. And maybe just to say that as Otis Africa Capital, who manage the 97 Fund, we have just gotten registration and at the Africa Crowdfunding Association with a view to take crowdfunding as another option for entrepreneurs in Uganda. So in the next couple of months or so, you should see from us a crowdfunding platform for the market in Uganda.
Thank you very much.
First step was getting that guidance from Africa Crowdfunding Association.
Thank you very much, Kenneth.
Cabo, Dolphin Fund, and then look at the Africa Crowdfunding Association and the members there, because those have gone through some kind of certification or vouching before they can be put out there. You'll find other African crowdfunding platforms that can be used by entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Kenneth. This leads us to our last question. We're about to wrap up. There's been a lot of startups that popped out as regards to in the advocacy space, especially in the States when the Black Lives Matter campaign was going on a lot, but it was impacted a lot because of fraud. Some people would open up a startup, collect and get some money, and just end up running away with it, right? So in this aspect, and a couple of things have been happening even on Twitter here in Uganda, where there's a cause, say medical or otherwise. How are we supposed to watch out for which startup, which advocacy space, which aspect to invest in, even if it's for, say, in that advocacy space or a charity cause? How is that going to affect? Because if it affects the impact of people and they have a negative aspect to crowdfunding or sort of investing in any sort of things like this, what are they supposed to watch out for? Kenneth, you might know better about this, but I will accept even you, John, because after this, I will give each and every one of you at least 30 seconds to give a last word. What are people supposed to watch out for before they engage in this sort of crowdfunding for advocacy, charity, and whatnot?
Well, I think you do your research first, right? If I'm crowdfunding on any of the platforms that Kenneth just mentioned, if it's, for example, speak from the entrepreneurship perspective, if it's a startup that's fundraising, I'll have to do my research, and there's so many people you could talk to in the ecosystem, from Startup Uganda to tech hubs to development agencies. Who is this guy? Do you believe in his product? Because they give you different models of crowdfunding. Kenneth mentioned there is debt. It can be debt-based or equity-based or reward-based, where you promise the people putting money into your crowd fund that as soon as my product goes live on the market, you'll get priority access. So I think you just need to do your background research and make sure that it's a valid cause, or it's a valid startup, it's a valid individual.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we're going to have just a light footnote on this topic. And obviously, ladies first. I will start with you, Viola. Just a few seconds on what you can mention on rethinking startup financing.
I'll use When as an example. WhenHardware.com has been bootstrapping. We've thrived and utilized resources around or within our reach. We've tapped into what ITC, we are a member of the NTF4 project under the ITC that John is representing. So we have used resources within our means to understand our needs and then shoot for other things that we know we can do better in. So currently, and for maybe so long, or unless things change, we are going to just expand on our network in terms of who to partner with, people who already have interests in construction, people who appreciate our product, and also go out to learn more about what our actual needs are. And until then, getting to VCs, I think would change maybe in 2021, but right now, I don't see that changing soon.
Thank you very much, Viola. Kenneth, a few seconds.
Yes, so I just have 4 concluding remarks. One, the fundamentals won't change. Get these fundamentals right as you're building a business. Solving a problem for a large enough market, and you're the team or the person to do it. On that basis, demonstrate quickly that you can do this by getting to revenues very quickly. That will open you up to alternative forms of financing in partnerships, revenue-based financing, even crowdfunding models. And finally, as we are doing all this, you asked about crowdfunding, how can people trust you? Integrity is very important. Show people what you are and actually live up to that about yourself. So show them a business they can trust and they can invest in. Then all the other things around partnerships, crowd-based financing models will be unlocked into your business. And reach out to us if we can help on any of these things.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. John, a few seconds.
So for me, it's for the entrepreneurs to focus more on the customers, on their markets. Every investor, the first thing that they ask you is, when you ask for investment, is how many users do you have, how many people are paying. They want to know that your product has been validated by the market. They want to know that you have a solid plan to monetize your business, because at the end of the day, most of these guys are all about their return on investment. So once you get that clear, you get your numbers right. Keep your historicals. Bookkeeping is very important. Then the money will come after you. I think there is enough money in the ecosystem, I believe, if you have the right business fundamentals in check. And like Kenneth mentioned, integrity goes a long way. Be as honest as possible. If you have competition, accept that there is competition, but you have a solid plan to do better than them. Make sure that your competitive advantage is out there. Get your value proposition right. What separates you from them? And then I think you're probably on the right path for investment. And also you have to do your research on the investor. There's a lot of rookie mistakes where people just pitch to any investor. They just go around. They become grantpreneurs. Wherever there's a grant, they go and pitch. So do your research. Make sure that their visions are aligned with you, and then you'll probably talk to the right people.
Thank you very much, John. I would like to thank you very much, the panelists. This has been a very good learning experience for me. Thank you, John. Thank you, Viola. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Startup UG, and your partners, UNCDF. It has been amazing. I've been Nevo. Thank you.
Yes, Nelville, before you go away, I'll ask you to have a seat there real quick. Next up, we have the Run Innovation Lab video interlude, but just one question from the audience, please.
Hello, thank you. My name is Nicholas, and I just had a brief question to ask. Since COVID broke out, a lot of investors, like you have said, are in a cash reserve mode. Now we have this problem within the ecosystem, which is existing. You have these local investors who have low appetite for investment because they're not familiar with the context of local startups. Like, for instance, Chikubo investors. How do you get them to put their money into our startups and to understand what they're signing up for. And then you also have the other context of investors coming from outside, the global investors. Well, they're not really equipped with the local context of African startups. So how do we bridge this mismatch between the local investors, the global investors, and get all of them to attract investment or financing for startups? Thank you. Yes, John.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I will respond to first of all, the foreign investor question, and then I think Kenneth, because he's working with Kampala angel investors, he will just jump in briefly to address the local investors. So that's a very good question, because I think we have, not just in Uganda, but on the continent, there is a very huge gap when it comes to local angel investment, which is a problem, because then it kind of discourages the foreign investment from coming in. If I am investing in your country locally, I need to have that trust that, you already have people within your ecosystem that trust you. And what that does is there is a de-risking factor that local angels play in de-risking the startups. So it's very, very important that we have more local angels coming on board, and this is why I emphasize the need to bridge the gap between the corporates and the startups. So for the foreign investors, I think in most cases it's a question of trust. There's not so much trust, to be honest, there's not so much trust in our ecosystem, and rightly so, because if I come to your ecosystem and your own local investors are not putting money in you, then the risk is so bad, it's so high for me. I don't understand the dynamics of your local ecosystem. I don't understand the market best, and I would want to co-invest. Co-investing is what every investor is comfortable doing. So once the local angels gap is not bridged, then you're likely to also miss out on the foreign investment, because they bank on trust, they benchmark on where the local angels are investing. And maybe I will ask Kenneth to explain the local scene in Uganda.
Yes, do we still have Kenneth? Do we still have Kenneth online?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, briefly, in 2 minutes, please.
Okay, yes. Well, what I'd say is there are certain things we have to do for the local investors, and we are doing them. One, educate. So through organizations such as Kane, but also through talks we've been sharing with the Investment Clubs Association of Uganda, because a lot of the local investors aggregate in these associations. We're educating them about startups and the impact they could make, the investment opportunity they present. But two, I'd say, on the part of entrepreneurs, integrity is very important. So for these local investors to come on board into your businesses, they have to be confident that you're not going to fail to return money, you're not going to fail to report on the way the business is performing, both good and bad. So there's a role to play for entrepreneurs there. And then the third perhaps would be, we need to share the impact stories and share the stories of our entrepreneurs as they grow their businesses, through forums like this that are run by Startup Uganda, but through, yesterday I heard of a podcast on, I think, Anchor.fm, shared by the Innovation Village, talking about a story of a teacher who in this pandemic has turned to alternative sources of income and unlocked entrepreneurship. When local investors hear such stories, then they'll come forward to help. But yes, we educate. We bide our time and share success stories so people come on board. And then us as the entrepreneurs who are out there, we espouse integrity in what we do so that we attract this capital.
Yes, thank you, Kenneth. And with that, we shall close this session. Let's have a photograph with you, Kenneth, in the background, I guess. That's the only way we can get you.